All right, we're back. Another
Yes,
week.
we're back.
So what's going on? What's going on this week?
Honestly, so coming up against a lot of the struggles of starting a business, right? When you just start, you've got all these other responsibilities that you still do. Now, thankfully, I don't have a 9 to 5 to worry about,
Right.
but that produces another problem of I need to get this up and running now because this is my income.
Yeah. There's a
So
little urgency and intensity behind it.
very much so,
Yeah.
because while I'm doing one-offs here and there for friends and other people that I know, um, you know, bookkeeping and just other financial things, um, over and above what they need for financial services that I provide in my business, it's not what I want to do regularly. So there's that urgency, and when you when your attention is divided just for the simple matter of I need to bring in some money to be able to feed my kids, pay my rent, you don't make as much headway on the business that you want, right?
Right.
You know that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's honestly that is a huge thing in when you're starting a business, your focus has to be so dedicated to the one thing, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
and yeah, when you're pulling like 15 different directions, I think that's why honestly a lot of people fail at business is because they're like, oh, I want to start this, and then they jump to the next thing, and I want to start this, and then they go to the
Mhm.
next thing, and if you can focus your energy on the one thing for a long enough period of time to make it work for you,
Mhm.
that will that will change your life.
I can't. We'll have to look it up and put it on the screen. But there's an acronym for focus about that. We'll have to look. I can't remember what it is. Just like with fail, it's first attempt in learning
Oh yes.
is fail. I cannot remember what focus is, but we'll have to look it up and put it on the screen in any of the videos that we do, but so that everyone can see it. But yeah, exactly. So, and as a single mom, I don't have help on the domestic side of things either, uh, from another spouse. Now I'm incredibly blessed with so many amazing people in my life. This village that when I moved to Grand Prairie, where I'm at now, where I primarily help my clients, even though I'm remote and can help them anywhere. I I I gained this village that I didn't even realize that I had. I didn't have to ask. It was just there. And now that's obviously why God brought me here.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like go to Grand Prairie for a reason.
Yeah.
I've been drawn here for about a year, but that's still the struggle. So thankfully, thank God, I have this village of all these people that have come to rally and support me. But on the business side of things, there it still leaves a lot. Whether you have a spouse or you're a single parent or you're not a parent at all, it still leaves a lot when your attention is divided, like you're saying. And so for myself, I know over the last couple weeks, right, we didn't get together last week because I was pulled in all these different directions that I completely forgot to get childcare to be able to come and do this. Completely forgot.
Yeah.
And for myself, prior to having kids, I was the one that was always 15 minutes minimum early.
Hmm.
It's I never it's not that I never canceled on anything. It's I was 15 minutes early. That's how ahead of the game I
Yeah.
was. I was a little neurotic and a little anxious all the time, but
You were prepared though.
I
That's
was
yeah.
prepared and I didn't have to cancel on people
Right.
because it was always, you know, done correctly. But last week, I it just didn't happen, and then I couldn't get a sitter, and obviously it didn't happen with us last week. So, and then this week, um, I tried to get out the door again early. Well, now the kids are in the picture, and I got out the door late. And you know what? Going forward, you should just assume I'll be like 15 minutes late, and I will, because that bothers me to no end.
Yeah.
That'll be my motivation. That somebody has to adjust like the clock for
Yeah.
themselves when it comes to spending time with me. That'll be my motivator, an extreme motivator to try different systems
Yeah.
because it's hard when your identity has always been the early one. I would go to game nights where people don't really show up at the time where it says it starts. They show up like an
Yeah.
hour late because that's the actual time it actually
Right. Yeah.
starts. I would go to a game night. It would say, "Oh yeah, it starts 7:30. We'll have it." I would be there at 6:45, 6:30, wondering where everyone was because
Yeah.
one, I didn't know the proper etiquette for game nights, but two, I was early. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That was your identity, and that's actually a huge thing. I think
Mhm.
so. Let's talk about that a little bit. Where when kids come into the picture, or when you're starting a business and life doesn't always feel like it's like you got it all together, like and that's okay. In fact, like if you talk to probably 90% of people out there, they would
Mhm.
feel like I don't have it all together, or at least they've been through a period of time where they didn't
Minimum
have it all together.
90.
And
Minimum.
and so what is your process of dealing with that really emotionally? Because outside of things, like for me, like I told you last week, it's just part of the startup, right? Like it's
Mhm.
part of the, you do your absolute best, and sometimes stuff gets missed, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes mistakes happen, and sometimes things go differently than we anticipated. So, what is your strategy to deal with the emotion around that, especially because your identity was previously that you were the early one, and
Mhm.
mine too. Like I was always 15 minutes early. My wife hated it. She wanted to be there on time, but it's like, so what is your strategy for dealing with the difference and being able to, I don't know if cope is the right word, but being able to grow through that transition?
So your identity does have to change. It absolutely has to change because when you go through transitions like becoming a parent, going from an employee to a business owner, your identity has to change just in that regard. So part of your identity that also is changing is most of the time your time management. So
Hmm.
what I am doing right now, because I went from employee to stay-at-home mom to entrepreneur, business owner.
Right.
So I've had a lot of shifts, and I was with somebody who was not known to be on time either. So I had a couple things working against me. It was amazing when we were the first people there at family gatherings. His family was so surprised.
Yeah.
It was funny. Um, but the way that I honestly cope is one, you schedule as much as you can. And with the kids, they thrive on schedules anyways. So
Right.
that's perfect. If you can get them on a schedule, which is what I'm trying to do, I'm working towards getting them there. Um, this week was a little chaotic because my son decided to get a sprained wrist, because that's
Yeah.
something he decides to do. Um, it's a conscious decision.
Yeah. Of course.
um,
Naturally.
so things happen where you have to adjust, but you schedule as much as you can with the and you have to know in your heart this isn't a set and fast schedule like maybe you had when you were a single Pringle in college.
Right.
Because I know I was at GPRC, I had this beautiful calendar, desk calendar, and then I had a day planner that I would bring to college, and the desk calendar would get filled out with everything I put in the day planner
Oh my
throughout the
goodness.
day, and it was color
You
coded.
were a little psycho.
I
A little
told you
bit,
I
a
was
little bit
neurotic. I
psycho.
told you I was neurotic. But it was great. I never forgot any. I always wore my retainer. Now I don't wear my retainer. My teeth have moved too much that I can't because they had braces before. I was on it for everything,
Yeah.
absolutely everything. I always finished my projects way ahead of time, except for one project that I did the night before and the morning of, and thankfully I got 100%. But I just know how to bowl my way through things on that part
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
I was in college. It was personal selling class. Apparently, I personally sold it.
Oh,
So
okay.
it
There
was
you go.
good. Um, but that's honestly how it's been to cope for it. It's been planning as much as I can with the knowledge that things are going to change. Things are going to happen. And knowing that just because things happen doesn't mean my entire schedule is ruined.
Right.
It okay maybe for the day or two, like for example when my son had got his sprained wrist, for that day and the next day, or that night and the next day, it's completely off track because now he's lost on sleep and there's it's chaotic. But another big thing, when I feel myself snapping and I recognize it, that's the key, is you have to recognize when you're about to snap, is just stopping, taking deep breaths, and I just pray. That's what I've been doing. I've just been praying. Like, God, give me the patience to go through this, make sure I'm okay, tell me what I need to do. Don't let me yell at my kids, don't let me flip out on them past what, a parent needs to keep them in line. I've honestly just been praying.
Yeah.
And like I've been relying on it. Breathing, praying, and then okay, now I can go forward.
Yeah.
And doing it right in front of my kids. So that's another thing. So, we just got interrupted for that because I forgot to do something.
Right.
Because I'm not supposed to have the kids on the weekend, but circumstances are happening right now where I do. And so temporarily I need to change my calendar, which obviously I haven't. And I rely on my Google Calendar so much.
Yeah.
I'm usually a paper person where I'll have my paper planner, and I prefer it. I love having paper over something digital. For clients and booking purposes, I prefer digital, obviously. I'm not going to get somebody to call me, wait till I have a time to answer them, and then book an appointment, But when it comes to my personal schedule and everything, I usually love paper. Uh, but my calendar has been absolutely essential on my phone because obviously you can take it everywhere you go because it's on your phone.
Right.
You can change things temporarily. So if you move something around on the Google Calendar, it says, "Hey, do you want to move it for just this time or every other time or what?" You can adjust it. And then it can go back to your regular schedule when you're ready for it, and you can just adjust that. I am looking into some other things as well. Like there's a program called Motion, but that's looking for something a little more in what I'm willing to pay, because Motion is pretty expensive, where it takes what your task list is and puts it into your day. With AI, it creates you a schedule. So I'm looking into other options as well to help me manage the surprises, help me manage all of those. But that's how really I cope, is I rely on a schedule, and I don't rely on my brain to remember.
Right.
That's the biggest thing. You don't rely on your brain.
Yeah.
Moms can understand.
Yeah.
Yes. Anybody who's a mom who's gone through pregnancy and well, obviously now has kids, will tell you that mom brain, pregnancy brain, is very, very real. Any husband will tell you it's very real. I'm sure you yeah.
Oh, my daughter during my wife's last pregnancy was like, she goes up to her and she's got a big belly, right? My wife, not my daughter, and so she's like baby, please don't take all of mommy's brain. Just like just knew something was going on, and so obviously, there have been enough incidences that she's like, okay,
See,
no.
even the child knows.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not relying on yourself and giving yourself grace, because, well, one, God gives you grace.
Yeah.
For everything. He cares about the things that you do wrong, but he gives you grace to forgive you and get you to do better going forward.
Right.
And that's what you need to do for yourself. Know that you're not perfect. You are human. You are not God. You are not Jesus. You're not as perfect as them, even though you're as a human. Give yourself grace, because if you're not going to, how often do you think other people are going to? Unless you're in the right crowd, obviously.
Yeah.
You'll be the only one outside of God giving you grace. And you beating up on yourself does so much worse than anybody else beating up on you.
Yeah.
So I have to give myself grace, and I'm learning that. I'm nowhere near perfect. Um, I'm learning that I need to give my own self grace. And last week when I canceled, I cried after we got off the phone because I felt so guilty. But I also know that guilt is not from God.
Right.
So I had to get that out of my head, and I had to go, okay, this happened. Here's why it happened. What can I do going forward? And just forgive myself.
Yeah.
Because I'm not in a perfect circumstance. I don't just have myself to worry about.
Yeah.
I'm going through all of these other different 15 million things that are taking my attention, that's making it impossible to just focus on one thing easily. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge thing too, like being able to recognize the failure, like it's not really a failure. It's just being able to recognize, hey, this didn't work out the way I intended it to. And so what am I going to do going forward? And I had situations like that too, where people were like, "Man, like, why are you screwing up so much?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. I've never screwed up this much in my life." But then it was also recognizing that, okay, like that person that was like, "Why are you screwing up so much?" They have all this stuff too. Now it doesn't give them any excuse to like come down on me for anything, right? But at the same time, I have to be able to like back up from the situation, give it a broader view, and be like, okay, here are the factors. At least I can understand it, because once you understand a situation, then you can come up with a solution for the situation.
Exactly. Right? But you also have to recognize that that solution that you've come up with may not work.
Right.
Right. I had an argument with some family where we were talking about just apologies, and I was like, I do apologize. At first, they were saying you don't apologize enough, and then they were saying I apologize too much. I'm going, okay, which one is it? And then what?
Sounds about right. You got both sides.
Right? And then it was, you can apologize all you want, but if what you're doing to fix it isn't working, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And while I disagree with that sentence, because as long as you're making an effort to change whatever it is that you're apologizing for, a true, honest to God effort, I think it does matter. It's not your fault per se if your first, fifth, or 10th solution to correcting that doesn't work the way you thought it would.
Right.
As long as you're not being stupid about it.
Yeah.
You're actually putting in the effort. You are actually like sitting down and considering it. It's not just oh, well, yeah, sorry, dude. I'll try again next time.
Yeah.
And maybe your try is, I'll try to look at my clock earlier so that I'm on time.
Yeah.
What are you actually going to do? Put something into place. So it's giving yourself grace as well to know that that first solution may not work.
Oh yeah, like well, it's the same as starting business. Like when you go into it and you're like, okay, well, I've got to do this. I'm gonna give it my best shot, right? I'm gonna give it my best shot, and then, but you're not the person that like their best shot isn't good enough, and I heard
With
this. I can't remember. Well, with any method, because they haven't become the person that can make it work yet. And I heard this from someone. They're like, um, you know, uh, you hear this oftentimes in like scholastic achievements or sports or whatever. It's like, give it your best, and if you give it your best, you're good enough, right? It's not true. Because if you give it your best and your best sucks, or your best doesn't produce the results, then go back to the drawing board, go back to the training room, go back to wherever you need to go back to, and figure out how to make your best better, so that when you go out and give it your best next time, then you nail it, then you produce the results that you were looking for.
It's exactly what a lot of people, just like you said, what a lot of people misinterpret from that saying is, you did your best, there's no need to get better.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what people, even though it's not said and probably not meant a lot, maybe not all the time, but a lot, is that you don't need to get better. Okay, well, if that's something you really want, you do need to get better. So while your best was good enough there, you now know where your limits are. You do need to keep on going forward. So I know my limits. I have no memory. I have a goldfish's memory. Except when it comes to my clients' stuff. I can see, I call it a personal assessment. Um, another word is an info gather, but I can see all their finances on the paper. I can see that. I cannot see their name on the paper, and I cannot see their face in my head, even though I probably just stared at it for an hour.
Yeah.
I can see their stuff on the paper. I know that that's my strength. So it hasn't been a problem so far, so I'm not looking to. It's not my priority to fix at this point,
Yeah.
but I know that's my strength. I know that's a limitation for me. So whenever I talk to somebody or I see them, I always make sure to have their personal assessment in my
Right.
hand so I can associate it as best as possible.
Yeah.
Right? Because I know my good enough, not memorizing my or not knowing my clients' faces, or especially their faces.
Yeah.
Their names is okay, but their faces, if I go, I think you're one of my clients.
Yeah. They see
Like,
you out in the grocery store and they're like, "Oh, hey, Trin," and you're like, "Hey." That ends up being a bad thing. Yeah.
like my clients are super super forgiving if I don't remember their names, because they honestly probably haven't remembered mine either, even though we had hour-long conversations a couple times. Possibly we message, we see each other on like our names on our phones. Names just seem not to be really great for people. um
Yeah, and I think I don't think it's names, honestly. I heard one of my mentors was talking about this whole thing because it's like people don't have a bad memory, and they just have a bad system of recall.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's interesting. So
Mhm.
people use the excuse all the time. Oh, I'm really bad with names. Well, first off, if you're saying you're really bad with names, you
Then
should
you're
probably
right.
stop doing that, right? Like that, because you're building that pathway in your brain that's like, oh, I'm really bad with names. So every time you meet someone, then you shake their hand, they give you, it's like, hi, I'm Alex, and they're like, hi, I'm
And your brain
so
is
and so, and
already
they're already
going, you
like,
don't need to know the name.
they're already like, I don't need that. I don't like, you're really bad with names. It'll be, and then as soon as they say it, as soon as I say, like I've met people where as soon as I said my name, they're like, oh, I'm really bad with names, so I'll do my best to remember or whatever, right? It's like, okay, well, maybe do it a different way, right?
Yeah.
Like, figure it out. But I can
To,
prove that you don't
mhm.
have a bad memory, and that you're not even bad with names, because who had a little lamb?
Mary.
Right, and that's a name. Fleece was white as. Right, you
Snow.
don't have a bad memory, and you're not bad with names. So now you got those excuses out of the way. Now you just need to work on figuring out what is the
Well,
system of recall.
and to your point, so in 2013, I just went back to I went to college while I was living in Edmonton just for a course. I took Psych 101 because I think how the brain works is
Yeah.
fascinating. And there was this definition that you had to memorize. You had to know who invented this way of viewing data or whatever.
Right.
It's the word was empirical.
Okay.
And it was empirical data, which means to observe. If it's empirically done, it means somebody watched it. And you had to know who invented that term or methodology or whatever it was. I don't remember much other than that, but you had to remember who that was. And for some unknown reason, well, it's not unknown, it makes perfect sense. It's 2024. I took that course in 2013.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's 11 years later. I still know exactly who did it, and I know my methodology for remembering it. So I still remember. So empirical, you observe, you have eyes, you have an iris in your eye. It was done by Aristotle, and it's IRIS. And I don't know why this connection works in my head, but it does. ARIS is the first four letters of his name, and they sound similar. Obviously, the I and the A kind of make it a little different, but Aristotle, iris, you observe, and that's how I remembered it. And obviously, to this day, I remember it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, to your point, I obviously still remember that guy's name, but he's also a very famous person.
So you need to figure out how to make people famous in your head.
I really do.
I
really do.
Yeah. See stars and stripes and banners all over the place. I don't know. Like,
but I don't really remember. Was he Greek? I don't even
I
know.
think so, yeah. But yeah, cool.
yes.
Well, that's a mental dump. So let's wrap it up with this. What is the number one struggle that you as a single mom have gone through while starting a business?
That's a loaded question. Um, really, it's doing it all and the emotional regulation that comes with it. Because any parent, married or single, will tell you that you can't do it all.
Right.
Well, now you become a single parent. You have to go make the money. You got to spend time with your kids, quality time. Even if it's not a lot, you have to spend the quality time. Um, and that could look like making them supper. It could look like cuddling with them on the couch, going out to play at the park with them, whatever. But for sure, making them supper, getting them dressed, like taking care of them that way. And then you also have to do your domestic duties in the sense of all the cleaning, maybe prep work for stuff. And then you also have to take care of yourself because no one's going to do it for you. You're single now. Mm-hmm. No one's going to do it for you. And then, yes, usually the making the money and being the breadwinner in today's society is thought of as a 9-to-5 job. But as an entrepreneur, it doesn't end when the kids come home. You know, when they go to bed, a lot of parents are cleaning up. I'm doing more business. I'm trying to get, I'm doing personal development learning to get some things out of my head that have been in my head, blocking my ability to do whatever it is I need to do.
Right.
It doesn't end. So the struggle that I have is managing all of it, which is why you bring in other people. So that's why I work with you on the business side of things, right? I work with you to help me with lead generation. I've got an amazing couple last night came over and they're like, here, we'll take care of supper today. So they came over, they brought supper. They cooked it at their house, brought it over to my house, and we had supper. And then they left me the food to help me out. So that's what I'm saying. This amazing village, it seems to keep on getting bigger and bigger. And I'm so, so grateful. And then I had someone just today go, hey, not to be presumptuous or anything, but if you need help cleaning your house, I love to clean and organize. And while I haven't said yes to her yet, because I have no idea how to say yes without feeling like a failure of a mom, because that's a real thing. You're not a failure. I'm not a failure. But it feels like that because you can't do everything.
Mm-hmm. I can show you how. You just go, yes. That's how you say yes.
Put an E at the beginning of that. It's not the same word. But that's the biggest issue. So for that, obviously, I'm going to say yes because that's an incredible. I'm gonna frame it personally for my own peace of mind for now, knowing my limitations on my pride and pushing it down. Yeah. Saying yes, I absolutely need help with organization and building systems in my home to make it easier for myself. And I know that's going to come with cleaning. But that's how I'm going to get around my pride and shove it out because having too much pride is never a good thing. Having pride at all, it's not a good thing. So I'm going to say the Y word. But that would be the biggest struggle and my solution to it. If you don't have a community who does this, find one. Mine is my church. All of these people I've met through my church, except for one couple where I met through work. All of them I've met through church. Yeah. And even the people that aren't directly in my circle, in my village, there's people at the church that have helped me out that aren't directly in my village without even asking. Yeah. God's put it on their heart, be like, hey, go help her with this. Yeah. And they're like, hey, it was put on my heart to help you with this. Do you even need help with it? And I'm like, actually, yeah, I do. Yeah. There we go. Done. So that would be my biggest challenge and the solution to it that I'm leaning into. Yeah. While also battling my pride and telling it to get the F out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. So don't do it all. Find a community.
Give yourself grace.
Give yourself grace. Love it. All right. Let's wrap it up.
That felt right. That felt good.
Good.
That felt really good.